Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Channel Anime, the anime review show. I'm John. This week, the second half of an anime about which I still, unfortunately, have some very mixed feelings. I'm talking about Clannad After Story. Now, I should point out right off the top that this review will contain some mild spoilers, but I'll try to avoid any big ones. Clannad After Story continues the story of the original series and follows the same characters through their senior year. It then narrows down and follows Tomoya and Nagisa after graduation. As a result, it has pretty much the same characters as the original series, but there are a couple of additions. Yusuke Yoshino is Kooko Ibuki's husband, who gives Tomoya a job after he moves out on his own. And Ushio, much like Fuko in the last series, is a character that I really can't say much about because of spoilers. Now on to the art and animation. Just like the original series, most of it is typical but very passable moe, however there are a few standouts. Of course, the Girl Alone storyline is always the best drawn and animated part of the series. They did a great job of making Nagisa look older about midway through. The use of black and white negative shots of Tomoya to illustrate his hopelessness was a very interesting and effective choice. And the transition into the closing credits of episode 17 was absolutely brilliant. And now on to the music. Like the art, and like the last series, most of it is very passable, but fairly unremarkable. However, there are a few standouts. Even though it didn't impress me at first, around episode 5, the opening theme began to really grow on me. It has a really pretty melody and some very nice syncopation. It was also great to hear the Big Dango family song used during some very pivotal moments. I have to admit that hearing it even now gets me a bit emotional. Now on to the story, and like last time, I'm going to take a pros and cons approach. Now on the pro side, Tomoya was a lot more civil in this series, and I actually found myself liking him around episode 10. I also liked that a lot more time was spent on the Girl Alone storyline. It was also nice to get some backstory on side characters like Mise and Yoshino, and I really liked how those two stories connected. I was also very pleasantly surprised by how dark they went with Yoshino's backstory and with what happened to Tomoya's father later in the series. And speaking of side characters, Yukine's backstory was very interesting. The fact that she was taking care of gang members in her spare time was a very nice curveball, and I loved that they told that story without demonizing any of the gang members. It was great to get an update on Fuko and to eventually see her released from the hospital. I was very happy to see her become a fairly important character again. I really missed her. The special graduation that Tomoya sets up for Nagisa was very touching, as was the story of Akio's secret place. I also thought that Katomi carrying on her parents' work and studying the hidden world theory was a very nice touch. It was great to see that explained in a lot more depth. Having Tomoya basically turn into his father later on in the series was a very nice touch. And the scene between him and his grandmother was very touching, especially when he learns to understand and forgive his father. Now, I should point out that there are 2 deaths in the series, and while they were a bit telegraphed, they were also very moving, especially the first one. Now, on to the cons. Fortunately, there aren't as many this time. While After Story was a lot less sexist than the first series, I still didn't think the beginning was very good. There were a couple of early episodes that even ripped off sitcom plots. For example, Akio organizing a baseball game with all of the kids, or Sanai masquerading as Sanohara's girlfriend. And they even spent 2 episodes on the second one. Oh, and the second one unnecessarily revealed that Tomoya has a little sister fetish. Of course, Nagisa still gets infantilized. And the beginning of the series just seemed too episodic, although thankfully that changed very quickly. There was also a bit of fuzzy math with regard to what grade Nagisa should be in. And it was a bit creepy that Akio was so interested in seeing her in her waitress uniform, to the point of taking photos of her. The explanation for the Girl Alone storyline was a bit less concrete than I was expecting, and really up to interpretation. And my big problem. The final episode completely wiped away all of the heartbreak and pathos that the series had built up to that point. And it included a very plugged-in scene with Fuko that really just seemed like an excuse to bring out a fan favorite. Now, the series did a really great job of winning me over and reframing the sexism of the first series as just part of Tomoya's development. Halfway through, I'd really fallen in love with the characters and the universe, which made the ending all that more unforgivable. As you can probably tell from previous reviews, I love it when an anime really brings on the heartbreak. So suddenly being told that none of that actually happened just made me feel like watching the series was a complete waste of time. Alright, that's it for Clannad After Story. Until next time, when I'll be reviewing Arpeggio of Blue Steel, take a look down in the description where you'll find a link to find Clannad After Story on Hulu. You'll also find links to find the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, as well as my anime list and Crunchyroll profile. And of course a link to Zombie Takeout, the Bee and Cult movie review podcast that I co-host and produce. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. They did a great job of making